Now I'm heated, I have to say, after this week's episode of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Like, we knew it was bad. We saw the entire village burst aflame, but to see Rimuru's just shocked and horrible reaction of the chaos, and the fact that he feels the need to blame himself when, yeah, technically you can say it's his fault because he gave them rules to follow. The first was don't attack humans. But when that happened, given the circumstances, it was understandable the rules that were in place. But the thing that really needs to be blamed here are these shitty humans working with this shitty church to do shitty things because either a book tells them these monsters deserve death because, well, they're monsters, they don't get the same rights as humans, or these humans just want profit. It's rare that I would be like, you know what, I hope they all get killed, but honestly, kill him, Rimuru, at this point in time. The only thing you might be able to really say that is kind of like uncertain in this episode is like Mulan and the two that are protecting her. There was definitely slice of life and time to kind of grow a bond between those characters, but not to the point that the viewer is going to say, you know, if Rimuru cuts off her head in this situation, are we going to be shedding a tear since she is partially responsible for all this chaos? No. The flip side is that, one, Rimuru can get a lot of information by keeping her alive, and two, it's no surprise that she was being manipulated by a demon lord, so can you really fully blame her when really it was a gun at her head? And if you really do look at it, many of the characters that are currently under Rimuru's protection could have easily been in a similar situation had he not guided them early on in their lives. So it's one of those things that I really do wish we got a bit more clarification and kind of like character building in the anime. I know the light novel probably did so with grace, but there is at least a shield to make it still work in terms of the narrative for the anime, in a pretty picture-perfect episode, all things considered. I mean, this episode kicks off with an amazing fight that shows Rimuru in the most monstrous and grotesque form ever, and I was jumping for joy. I was like, my man's not gonna win this fight, but that looks pretty badass, I have to say. And it was really interesting how we see the destruction, and before the doppelganger reveal, I just kind of assumed to myself, well, most likely the way he got out of that was, you know, it looked like she blew him apart, but since he is a slime, even if like a little small bits of goo kind of survived that blast, maybe he can reform himself. But the idea that they actually went a step further to say like the reason he was able to survive that whole blast was that he actually made a doppelganger of himself and kind of hid away while that was all occurring. I actually like it when a main character has to retreat because he's just not ready in order to defeat an opponent like that, because a lot of times a show, especially you see in like battle shonens, like the way you constantly beat these powerful enemies is your character continues to get more powerful as the episodes progresses. And while you do want to see Rimuru get more powerful, he shouldn't just randomly pull power-ups out of his ass in order to defeat someone who's clearly more skilled than him, especially given the fact that there was a barrier like really limiting his abilities in that situation. Him actually having to retreat, not only do we get eye candy because of the whole grotesque monstrous form, we also got a really interesting way for him to naturally survive that. Or even the cleverness of how, like, you know, they realize that they can't teleport, well, we can teleport close too. And then you get all the kind of like realization that everyone's really doing their best not to show Rimuru what's happened because, well, it's pretty painful. It's not even one of those cases where an anime went the direction of saying, hey, a village got massacred, and you just see a bunch of adult characters. There was kids there. There was kids who were literally slashed apart. And while, yes, you know, naturally humans want to kill those that are different, if aliens came and landed on Earth, you know, there'd be like only 10% of the population who would actually want to support interacting with them. The rest would be up in arms wanting nuclear warfare. But to see these characters that we've grown so accustomed to knowing that they literally follow these rules, we don't want to harm anyone, and the only time they get into battle is when Rimuru commands it. And Rimuru's a very nice character, and while you could say he's been ignorant to the world, up until this point there's never been a challenge that has really kind of said, what you're doing could invoke chaos, because he's always won either by his own skills or those who have supported him. And in this episode you have something that not many authors I feel like would write. A main character admitting to their mistakes. He actively admits in this episode that I was playing with fire without even realizing it, that the trades I was making interfere with others and therefore could provoke a war because it just didn't cross his mind. He wasn't some diplomat in his previous life. This is him literally playing an isekai like a video game, so to speak, where if he builds relationships properly, he'll have a really strong civilization that he can live a carefree life. And the fact that he has to keep realizing all of these mistakes, that his rules made it so maybe if he didn't give that rule, would have they had less casualties? If they would have fought back immediately, would there only have been a select handful of deaths? He has to wear that on his shoulders, honestly like a badge, so he never forgets, so this never happens again. And even though his instincts is he wants to kill those who have wronged him, he knows as a leader, if he just lashes out, he could cause more harm than good. Even though we didn't have as much, I think, development between like Mulan and, her lover / other lover, who really, she doesn't love him, but she loves the other one. Even though I think there was definitely room to progress that in a more natural way, this is a character who has information, and once you get that information, you're no longer necessarily mad at this person who's been used as a pawn, you're more mad at the person pulling the strings, the puppet master, so to speak. And this was an episode that I think really highlights just how this is a world that, honestly, up until this point, while Rimuru is powerful and has made very powerful allies, there also has been a great deal of luck that has made it so nothing truly bad has happened up until this point, and clearly playtime is over. I'm totally expecting that Rimuru is going to get his hands dirty. In this episode, there was honestly multiple points where I thought he was about to lash out and destroy some bitches, but instead he restrained himself until he understood what was going on. But I think when he gets in front of like the Three Stooges from last week or the Demon Lord, even if he can't personally defeat them himself, I wouldn't be surprised he sends an army to their doorstep and he does kill. I could easily see that happening. And I think my favorite point of this entire episode was just the group, some about to bring up horrible information where others are saying don't tell him because they didn't want him to blame himself, because Rimuru's orders were don't attack humans, and immediately Rimuru would blame Rimuru because, well, I gave the order, that was the first rule, don't attack humans, and look at what happened. They attacked us, and the person wasn't even really blaming Rimuru, it was just saying like, we followed your orders and this happened, and I'm like, the pain? The rage, the suffering, but I think the thing that made me have the most chills was when Rimuru said nothing, and his face was almost lifeless and shocked all at the same time. This show's directing can be exceptional when it wants to be, and last week really picked up the pace there with its visual directing, how they were animating the fight scene. This episode kicks off with an even crazier fight scene, despite it being shorter, with the whole transformation scenes and the explosions really putting into perspective power, but then you get the more simpler, calmer scenes where the streets are painted with red, and it's just so horrible seeing something that was so peaceful, that had no chaos, that the most violence in this was a character getting punched in the head into the ground, Looney Tunes style, now is filled with children's and parents and just nice monster bodies. They literally were people by all rights of the definition, even if their biological DNA said they were a goblin or other creature that the world wants to make them out as. While I don't think this will be the end of Tempest, I do think this is the end of what we've seen Tempest to be. And I think whatever it's going to look like by the end of the second season is going to be vastly different than where it started out at the beginning of the second season. There's going to be blood, there's going to be chaos, and while Rimuru hasn't fully snapped, pieces are starting to snap in his mind, and it's going to be crystal clear that people are going to have to pay, and playtime is definitely over. I'd love to know everyone's thoughts and feelings on an episode that got me pretty damn heated, but I wouldn't have it any other way because I want these antagonists to invoke negative emotions, so when I see bad things happen to them, I will get that reward all the more than a simple Disney villain who I say, oh, was defeated, but really you did nothing except say you were going to destroy the world. These characters literally have destroyed the world as we know it, and we want their death so damn bad. Let me know your feelings out down below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.